All right, y'all, welcome back to Healer University. I'm Black Angel. I'm your instructor. And today we're gonna be talking about chords and soul ties. Chords and soul ties, okay? So before we get started, let's make sure our atmosphere is prepared, starting with connecting us to the earth vortex so we can be grounded, and connecting to the divine light vortex so that we can bring light to whatever that we need to see during this class, okay? So just like any other class, we're gonna take a deep breath in the nose and out the mouth. Intentional breaths of breathing in love and exhaling any negativity or any blockages or anything that your mind, body, and soul feels you should be calling upon to release or to inhale, okay? So as we all start to do the deep breaths, I command that we all be connected to the earth vortex. Shay. So as usual, you should be starting to feel the connection to the earth, to your lower legs and feet through the root chakra. Allow you to feel more centered, more grounded, Ashe. Then we connect to the divine light vortex, comes in through the crown chakra, spiraling throughout the body, all the way down to the feet. Okay, this time let's also call on our divine support team. Again, this is your spirit guides, your guardian angels, God or divine creator, those who support you, your ancestors. I want to ask them for divine protection and divine guidance during this class. And we thank them for sacrificing their time and energy to be here with us to assist us. Ashe. Okay, before we get started, let's do a little bit of sound bowl healing. Just help raise the vibrations to make sure that any negative attachments of any kind that may be attached to you at this time, we're going to make sure they are released, like any external energies and entities that may be attached to anyone. When I strike the bowl, the intention is that these energies will be detached from you and released into the light so that the light can send them where they belong. Ashe. All right, so this is the bowl I'm using. When we get later into the class on how to use divination tools for cleansing and healing, this is one of the tools we're going to be using. If you have it, you don't have to have a singing bowl during that class, but I'll be showing how you can use a singing bowl to do different types of vibrations, regardless of the vibrations it's already set for. I'm going to be teaching how you can actually use it for other things other than the vibrations that it was made for. So yeah, it's going to be pretty dope. So if you get like a singing bowl, or you get like a tuning fork, or like a Tibetan bell, something that has like that ping vibration, that's gonna be really dope to use for cleansing and healing in the future classes during the, or right after the energetic healing part. All right. Okay, so let's get into these chords and soul ties. What are chords? Okay, first of all, they're called etheric chords, like they're energy chords. And we all have them, right? We can even be born with etheric cords that are attached to us from the mother, from the father. They can be attached to us from past lives. Sometimes they can be referred to as, okay, ethereal cords, energy cords, and ribbons. Some people refer to them as ribbons that are attached, okay? They can be attached to the auras, the chakras, the physical body, the inner self or the soul, the higher self, the ego. I mean, there's like pretty much any part of us can have a cord attached to us, between us and another, being, whether it's a person, place, thing, animal, etc. Right? Could be a situation, could be a relationship. It can be pretty much anything that we have a connection with, whether that connection good, bad, or indifferent. The cords are just is, and then what flows through the cords, makes it the type of cord that it is. Okay, so even if you look at the here, you can see like these arrows, right, where it's going from this person's head, and these arrows are going to the other person's head, right? And the same thing here, right? So cords can feed from one person to another person, or they can feed from you to an object, or from an object into you, like a crystal, right? A crystal can have a cord between you and the crystal, and that crystal can send energy into you through that cord. Now, the thing about cords, right, is that we have to remember that sometimes they are just temporary cords. They're not cords that's going to be there forever. A good analogy of a temporary cord is when you have a conversation with someone that you just met. For the most part, that conversation is a temporary conversation. It could be just something on a whim, maybe on the bus or the train or in a store, or even through maybe a social media app, somebody you have a temporary conversation with. And during that time of the conversation, a temporary cord is established where you and this person will exchange energy, right? Now, this exchange can be good, it can be bad, or it could just be neutral. So that means even when you have a disagreement with somebody via social media or in the public, there's a cord that's established. It's just going to be a negative cord. But when you have good moments that are temporary with people, those cords are temporary, but they are positive, right? They can be used to kind of help uplift you, or in some cases, they may bring you down, just all depend on the interaction. But usually after a few days, those cords between you and that other person on that temporary, encounter would just kind of fade off on its own, meaning that you usually don't have to do anything. Now, the times that it goes from temporary to permanent from a temporary situation is when there's something that you were impacted by during that exchange, and it could have negatively affected you, right? Now, it could also be positive, but usually we don't pay attention to the positive ones because they kind of just, they feel good, so we don't think about it. But the ones that are not so good are the ones that bother us after the encounter. So, let's say one of you gals or guys in a grocery store and somebody hit the back of your ankles with a shopping cart, right? It's gonna be a temporary cord between you and them. It's not gonna be so good. So a couple of days later, you may be talking to somebody, and all of a sudden you be like, "Yeah, because the other day this MF, hit the back of my ankles, and I wanted to, So that cord is still there. That cord is still there, and it's still bothering you. So that's when these cords become permanent, and it's like if you don't release that situation, it can be months down the line, and you'll bring that situation back up again, depending on how you bring it back up. If you bring it back up and just for educational purposes, it's not the same. But if you bring it back up and you still have them same feelings that you had when it happened, yeah, that's a permanent cord that you created, and might want to release that. So we're gonna go into releasing that kind of stuff later, okay? But just remember, not all cords are permanent. Some are just temporary, and they'll release on their own after the encounter. Okay, so what are some ethereal cords attached to? Okay, addictions. Okay, so when it comes to addictions, right? And you all can take notes during this time too, because it may apply to you, okay? So when it comes to addictions, Most of the time, you're going to have a cord between you and the event that caused the addiction. Like it's like, okay, somebody was um, doing drugs or smoking cigarettes, and it's an addiction, they wanted to break. We go to the root, like which cord is attached to the reason that led you to smoking the cigarettes in the first place or doing the drugs in the first place, right? So that's going to be one cord. And then you may have a cord attached to the urge to do the particular, drug or, whatever it is, the addiction, right? So the cord between you and the urge, okay? A cord between you and the actual substance that you're using. So if somebody was addicted to, let's say, cocaine or heroin, like say even cigarettes or alcohol, drinking alcohol, there's a cord between you and the actual substance, right? Because at this point, you're starting to do a ritual, which becomes a habit, which is in the next, right? So some of your habits can be there because of an addiction, or it could be there just because of something that you're just used to doing. So when you think of rituals, right? Rituals deals with when you're just doing something repetitively at a certain time, at a certain place, it becomes a ritualistic, right? Which creates a habit. So you can have a cord to a habit. That's not always a bad thing though, right? Some cords to certain habits you want to keep because it can be things that keep you balanced. It can be habits that keep you grounded. Like a habit or a ritual could be every morning I wake up, I'm going to speak these words into my life for the day, right? That could be a good habit or a good ritual. So you don't want to really mess with those as far as getting rid of them if they help you. But let's say that you have a habit or a ritual that you do and you fall out of doing it, then somehow the cord between you and that ritual may have been released. And so in those cases, you want to reestablish a cord between you and the ritual or the habit that's good for you, right? So when we say these cords, these cords being attached, they're not always bad and you don't always want to get rid of them. But the ones that don't serve you, of course, you do want to get rid of those. Okay. Now, going back to the addictions, when we're talking about addictions, this can be attached to certain chakras like the solar plexus. It can also be attached to the root chakra. And some cases attached to the heart chakra. But most of the time, addictions are going to be attached to the root chakra and the solar plexus for the most part. Root chakra dealing with your stability and dealing with your upbringing. You may have addictions that are generational, meaning like if you had a parent that was an alcoholic and then now you're an alcoholic, right? Then that addiction will be attached to your root chakra because it's going to go back to the generations attached to you. It's also going to be attached to your inner child because that's what you witnessed, right? So that's one of the ways to locate where addictions are attached to you. Now, when we get into actually demonstrating and removing any cords, we're going to actually allow ourselves to feel the chakras and the other parts of the body where the attachment is so that you can make note of it and then be able to have a better understanding of how it got there in the first place. Okay, so we can also have attachments from people, between people when we're talking about cords. And a cord can be like a one general cord between you and another person, or it could be a cord between you and a person just based on the chakras. Like let's say if you and another person usually have like an intellectual encounter when y'all talk or meet each other, then most of the cords between you and that person is just going to be from the crown chakra to the crown chakra, right? Maybe even from third eye to third eye as well, because it's more of an intellectual conversation. But if it's somebody like that you have like a sexual attraction to, and they do vice versa, then that might be a cord attached to both of you from the sacral chakra, which deals with sexuality. Okay. If it's about money, you and a person who's dealing with money, the cord will be attached to the root chakra because that's where money is dealt with. Same thing with protection. Okay, if it's dealing with creativity, that can be also sacral chakra and third eye chakra. If it's dealing with self-esteem, confidence, personal power, maybe you and this other person is someone who uplifts each other, then that could probably be solar plexus. If it's someone who you and this person helps each other with unconditional love and self-love and just loving each other, and just being loving in general, there can be a heart chakra cord between the two of you. If you like to talk, like, y'all like to talk on the phone, talk on video, and just always talking to each other. And that includes like text messages. That also includes social media. Then, a cord between you and another person can be from the throat chakra. So when we talk about these connections, right, most of the time we will hope these connections are mutual, where the cords are mutual. That means, on both sides of the ends of the cord, if it's mutual, then the flow of the energy is pleasant as energy flows through those cords. But let's say you have an attachment from someone who may be attached to you in a certain way, but you're not really feeling them that other way, right? So let's say you're having an intellectual conversation with somebody and they're like, they really love your intellect. So they have a cord going from their crown chakra and their third eye to yours. But from you might be looking at their intellect like, nah, you dumb. Nope, can't talk to you, right? And I'm just being funny, but it really be like that sometimes, right? So when you have that, then that's when some ambiguity in the cord, that's when there can be some disturbance in that energy, that transfer of energy. And then that's when we start to have that feeling like something feels off, something don't feel right. Like I'm not liking this connection. It's because the energies, the frequencies aren't resonating. So when that energy from that party and your energy come to meet, if it doesn't at least be close to matching, not saying everybody's going to match exactly, right? But if it's not close to matching, it's not going to feel good. It's going to make that whole cord feel out of balance. And then when that cord feel out of balance, sometimes you can feel it actually in your physical body that something is off, right? So you got to be really careful what type of cords you allow to attach to you between you and other people, because once that cord is established, energy can now be transferred between you and that person in that area that it's attached to. So if there's a person that you are angry with, for example, you're angry, anger comes from the solar plexus, but when it gets sent to the other person, it usually cords from the heart chakra to the other person. So now your chest may be feeling uneasy because of the anger that you have for another person. That's a cord towards that other person of anger that's established. And that can cause physical issues to your chest and physical issues to the other person's solar plexus. Okay. So when we talk about those cords between people, just like any, good, bad, and indifferent, we have to make sure that we have the cords that we want connected, and the ones that we don't, we got to remove them so that they don't cause further damage to ourselves and to others. Okay, so let's go into cords associated with places. Now, when you think of, let's say you have a dream and you keep having a reoccurring dream in a place that you used to live in the past, there's a cord established between you and that place. It could be the city, it could be the town, it could be the neighborhood, and sometimes the direct house or apartment that you lived in where something happened, like some kind of trauma, and your dreams or your thoughts keeps bringing you back to that place. I mean, there's a cord between you and that place that's still established, and it's still feeding you energy from that place that you probably haven't healed from, right? So if that was trauma in a specific place, the type of cord may be a trauma bonded cord, right? A trauma bond. So that cord energy between you and that place, the energy in it is just trauma, pain, hurt, suffering, whatever you went through. And once you heal from that event or whatever happened in that place, then you can either cleanse the cord and leave it there, or you can just get rid of the cord completely so you no longer have an attachment to that location. All depend on how you feel about it. You know, when it comes to events, events will be like if you went somewhere public and something happened, there may be a cord established between you and that event. Like, let's say if you went to Six Flags, right? And you had an amazing time. You may have a cord attached between you and Six Flags that's very positive. So every now and again, that cord between you and Six Flags is gonna pop up and say, hey, when you coming back to me? You know, it's like the Six Flags is calling you back because you had such a great time when you went there. And so that's, to me, that's a good cord. I mean, you know, that means that your spirit is saying, hey, let's revisit this feeling again because we like what that felt like. But at the same time with an event, it could be like, for example, I use myself as an example. Like when I went to Iraq, okay, that was an event. It was a war, right? So that was a cord between me and the war itself, the event. And so over time, I have to continuously cleanse that cord. So when I finally am able to fully release it, I can release it without it coming back to me. So if we don't fully heal and cleanse the reason why the cord was there in the first place, those cords tend to come back until we deal with it, right? Okay, then we have ideas and thoughts. Ideas and thoughts. That deals with when we have an ideal about something and we don't want to let that thought go, which can be dangerous at times, right? Unless you're trying to manifest something positive. If you're trying to manifest something negative through your thoughts, and maybe not doing it intentionally, but you can have a cord attached to you, between you and that thought or that idea. And then depending on what type of intention that thought has, or the thought or the energy behind the thought and the idea, it can actually feed you in a negative or positive way. So being mindful of your thoughts, if you're thinking of things that are positive, then those thoughts are going to feed you positive energy. If you're thinking negative thoughts, those thoughts are going to feed you negative energy. And then that can then turn around and manifest in a physical, either in your physical body or something around you that manifests based on those thoughts and ideas. So we got to be real careful that when we catch ourselves having negative thoughts, self-sabotaging thoughts, we got to figure out why the thoughts were there in the first place, and then address that, and then release the cords between you and those thoughts and those ideas that are not good for you, so that they can fade away. They can go away. Okay. All right, cords attached to the chakras. Attached to the chakras. I was just talking about this a little earlier, right? Okay, they could be found by scanning the chakras, asking your higher self to let you feel where the cords are tied to a specific issue. Now, when we do energetic healing part 1, it's going to be based on scanning, but it's not going to be scanning just on the chakra. It's going to be a whole lot of other things too. But for this particular class, we're going to just focus on the chakras when it comes to these cords, right? And the reason why we're focusing here is because it's a little easier to feel the chakras in the body. And then once we get into the energetic healing part 1, then we'll be able to go deeper, because this class will give us an idea on how to use our body or our other gifts to scan. So first thing you want to do in this, and I want you all to do this with me, right? I want you to ask your higher self to let you feel each of the 7 major chakras in your body, to allow yourself to feel where they are in your body, so that you know without a doubt, when I feel the root chakra, I feel it here, I feel my sacral here, solar plexus, etc. It's important for you to know where you feel it, so when you're doing healing on other people and you're feeling their energies, you can know exactly which chakra you're feeling the attachment to them, or whatever chakra that needs healing. So again, at this time, I'm asking you to ask your higher self to let you feel the 7 major chakras in your physical body. So let's take a moment and do that. Okay, so at this time, if did anybody feel where the chakras are located in their body? Was anybody able to feel that? You can come off your mic and just, say yes or no. If you felt some, but you feel like you didn't feel others, go ahead and talk to me.
I felt all of them, and it was amazing. Each one
Good,
of them, my body allowed me to feel
good
each
stuff.
one of them. It was dope.
Cool. Thank you for sharing that. Good. Okay. And so hopefully the rest of you all are able to feel where they are. You can even do it one by one too. Let me feel my root chakra, then actually sacral, solar plexus. Allow your body to feel each chakra individually. You can do that too. So just in case you might have had trouble trying to feel which chakra was which, you can always act that way too. Now, if you look on the diagram behind me, okay, we got the root chakra here that goes pretty much the base of the spine down to the feet. Okay, got the sacral chakra that's right above in the pelvis area, below the navel. We have the solar plexus that's in the stomach. Okay, some people call it the navel chakra or the belly button chakra. And then we have the heart chakra, which is at the sternum in the chest. Okay, the throat chakra is pretty much right there at the base of the neck. And it also deals with the lungs. So you may also feel it a little bit in your chest where the lungs are. You have the third eye chakra, which deals with the between the eyebrows, and this covers most of the head. And then we have our crown chakra that deals with the brain and sits on top of the head. So the crown chakra sits above, but because it deals with the brain, you most of the time can feel it around the top of the head and sometimes all the way to the back of the head as well. Because you have the brain stem and stuff like that back there that the crown chakra also is attached to. And it's your nervous system. So sometimes you feel it at the back of the head for that reason too. Okay, so now that we know where these now that we know where these chords are, or where these chakras are, now we're going to go into live demonstration, right? Now, before we go into what we're going to pull, we're going to talk about pulling versus cutting, okay? So when I was first, learning about this work, I would always see people talking about cutting the cords, right? Cut the cords between you and other people, cut the cords between you and the situation, between what we explained in the previous slide, right? And Spirit kept saying to me in my mind, kept saying, don't just cut them, don't just cut them. And I'm like, okay, what do we do with them then if we don't cut them? And they say, pull them out. And I was like, just pull them out, okay. So I went into meditation, and what they showed me was, okay, for example, if you look at this cord here where the scissors are by the heart here, if I cut the cord, right, there's still a piece of the cord that's attached to my heart, still a piece of the cord that's attached to the other person's heart. So the energy of that cord is still there. So on the outside, the cord is cut. There's still energy into that cord still coming into me. So Spirit said, what you want to do is you want to go in and you want to find the base of the cord and you want to detach the cord from there, from inside, and pull the cord outside of you so that there's no residual cord left over still feeding into you. See, this is the thing, right? You can have a cord that goes into the body and then it goes all the way down to a whole nother chakra. That means this cord can come into the heart chakra, but then it can go to the solar plexus. It can also go to the sacral. It can also go to the root chakra or the third eye, right? It can actually travel throughout the inside of your body into other places. So just cutting it is not enough to actually deal with the situation. So when we pull the cord out from its root, right? When we pull the cord out from its root, then it can no longer feed us because it's no longer inside of us as well. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So, also with that, there can be some residual energies associated with that chord as well. So again, when we talk about pulling chords versus cutting chords, we want to remember that, you know, pulling them out will be more of a permanent solution rather than cutting them. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, we'll go to soul ties in just a minute. Let's go back here. Now, what we're going to do, I'm going to use the chakra deck because that's what Spirit led me to pull before the class started. Chakra deck, and since we were just talking about the chakras in the slides, this deck is appropriate. So, when it comes to something that we all may need as a collective, okay, it's not going to be personal, it's going to be like a collective thing. And we're going to use whatever example Spirit shows us, and we're going to practice doing just so. Practice pulling those chords out. Okay. Oh, wow. So the chord that comes out is the completion chord. Completion. Okay. Now this card is based on the sacral chakra because it is the orange. And it deals with basically letting go emotional trauma, letting go of hurt. Because in the sacral chakra, there can be a lot of past trauma held in that area, in the womb space, in the prostate for men. Okay, so now again, we're talking about pulling cords associated with emotional trauma. Now, this is the thing, when you pull a cord, you may get some symptoms later on, meaning you pull the cord out and then later on, your higher self shows you what effect that cord actually had on you. So when you pull it, it's not just like, okay, I pull it out and it's gone and that's it. There's a lesson behind it. You'll be shown the lesson of why that cord was there so that you don't put yourself in a position for it to happen another time, right? And sometimes it comes to a vision, like through imagination or through daydreaming. And sometimes it comes through dreams. And sometimes it'll just show up in another person where somebody will say something and they'll click and be like, that's why that chord was there. Okay, now it makes sense. Okay, so to do this, it's going to be real simple. Okay, I'm going to teach you a very simple way of pulling chords. So first you want to identify the chords, right? So when it comes to emotional trauma, you want to ask your higher self to show you where any chords of emotional trauma are attached to you. So depending on your spiritual gifts, some are going to feel it, meaning you'll start to feel maybe a pressure or something, maybe even a little bit of a cramping in places of the body where you have emotional trauma cords attached. So if I'm using myself, what I'm feeling a little bit of discomfort in the sacral, and I'm feeling some energies kind of moving in my crown chakra, right? So that tells me that, of course, I have the emotional trauma in the prostate, the sacral chakra, and that this emotional trauma is affecting my crown chakra, which means it could be affecting my outlook on life. It may be affecting my connection to the divine. It could be affecting how I communicate with my ancestors and how I receive messages from them, you see? So now, once you establish where the chords are, then now you can pull them. Now, using your imagination or your words, it's going to be key. So if you're someone who don't feel, maybe in your mind's eye, you see where the chords are. Like maybe they show you a picture of a person or you, and then they show you a chord coming from the sacral, or one from the crown, or wherever it is established. So even if you don't feel it, you can see it in the mind. Okay, maybe you don't see or feel. Maybe you will hear the words in your mind. You'll hear sacral chakra. You'll hear heart chakra, like you'll just hear it. And then sometimes there's going to be a knowing. You're just going to know where they are. You don't know how you know, you just know. That's claircognizant. So whatever comes to your mind, first, that's what you go with. Don't second guess it. Okay. Okay. So now that we know where the chords are established for emotional trauma, one method is going to be using your mind. Imagine yourself grabbing hold to those chords, and you continuously pull the cord out of your body until the cord is no longer there. Meaning, don't force the cord to end until in your mind, the end of that cord comes out on its own. So when you're pulling and you're seeing the edge of that cord and it's like, okay, I don't see anymore now, then you know, okay, I pulled it all. Okay. So when you're pulling the cords for yourself, sometimes you might not feel it right away because you're doing it on yourself, right? If you're doing it on someone else, they'll feel it as you're doing it. They'll actually feel the movement of the energy being pulled as you are pulling the cords out. So again, I want you to picture where one of the cords may be, or maybe where you felt it. You can also assign the cord a color so that you can see it better. So let's say in your mind's eye, I can't see where the cord is. So then you say, okay, higher self, highlight that cord red. Whatever emotional trauma cords, highlight them red or orange or whatever color, right? And then now you'll be able to see where the cords are by color. And then you can grab that color and you can pull those cords. And what you'll notice too is when you pull cords out, whatever space those cords were filling will start to feel a little empty because again, the cord entered the body, but then it went all kind of ways throughout the body. So when you pull it out, you actually feel more relief in that space where the cords were sitting inside. So let's take a little bit of time to do that, and then we'll go into what you all may have felt and experienced, and we'll share it. Okay, so as you all are doing that, I also want to say that another way that you can do it is by using your words with your higher self, right? And this we can do with commands, just like we've done in other classes. I command my higher self to fully pull all cords of emotional trauma out of me, Ashe. And you can reword it how you want to word it, right? I command my higher self to pull all emotional trauma cords out of me, Ashe. So using your commands through your higher self can also help you pull the cords. And for some people, that might be easier. It may be easier for you to command your higher self to do it while you kind of lay back and just allow yourself to feel it as it's happening. And as you feel it happening, you can also allow yourself to see any images that may come to the mind that may remind you of where those trauma cords came from. So for me, I actually find using the method sometimes to imagine a chorus and pull them works best when I'm doing it on someone else. Like, so if I'm helping you pull chords, I may see all the chords and wrap them up in my hands and I pull them out until they're all gone. That method works pretty good when I do it on other people. Now, when I'm doing it on myself, the method I prefer is using my higher self to do it while I can just kind of sit back and just relax and allow the process to happen, right? So it's a recommendation. It's not that you have to do it this way, but a recommendation would be use the mental method, the third eye method to pull cords out of other people. Use your higher self to pull cords out of yourself. okay, so that you can actually relax and let it happen. If you feel strong enough, safe enough, you can even ask your higher self to do the work when you're doing it with other people as well, right? Um, but you will know if you feel comfortable with that or not when that time comes to do it that way. Okay, so let's just take about a minute, and I would like anyone to just come off their mic and just kind of share with us the method you chose to do and just what you just experienced in this moment. Floor is open. Right? Did anyone practice the exercise while we were doing
I felt I asked my higher self to do it. My heart chakra.
it? Okay. And what did you feel when that happened?
I really didn't have a feel. It felt lighter afterwards. And energy's moving around.
Okay, so you could feel the cords moving out of the body as it happened.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. Good. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing like the after part that it actually felt lighter, which goes back to when you pull that cord from the inside, it actually makes room in that space that the cords were sitting inside. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, anybody else? Okay, guess everybody a little shy tonight.
I felt it in my throat.
Okay.
I felt kind of like I won't say a squeezing, like a pressure maybe
Hmm.
in my throat, but I felt like kind of pulsating in a sense.
So you felt
I
the
feel,
throat pulsate as
yeah,
it came out?
yeah,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's
and
actually quite normal too. Okay, go ahead.
I did like the like imagine a cord being pulled.
Oh, so you did it through the mind. You did the mind way.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay, good stuff. So that pulsation of the muscles or the twitching of the muscles, like
Hmm.
if you could imagine like when a cord getting pulled out through the skin, you know,
Hmm.
realistically it would make sense that the skin kind of flutter, right? The muscle kind of flutters. So basically that's what's happening. Like you're pulling the cord out and the physical body is reacting to as if something actually physically was there that you were pulling out, which it is. It's just energy.
Right.
So yeah, thank you for sharing that because that actually does happen sometimes when I pull cords out of people. They feel that pulsating or that twitching in the muscles right there in that area. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Oh. Okay. So hopefully, you all should feel quite comfortable, especially the more you practice this over and over again. You should feel confident that you can successfully pull cords yourself, okay, whether it's from yourself or from others. Just make sure you're doing it with their permission, of course, right? You don't want to be just snatching cords out of people because you feel like it, right? Like, I don't like this person doing this. I'm gonna snatch that cord out of them. No, don't do that, okay? It's not cool. All right, you don't want to go against their free will, okay? They might like what they're doing, okay? Um, Okay, so one of the things I would just add is just that, and you're gonna learn more about this in the energetic healing 4 part uh, of the course, is cleansing the residual energies uh, that are left over from those cords, right? So you think that the energy is fed into the body, and then once that energy goes into the body, it might spread, right? It might spread. So then you have to also allow yourself to release any residual energies associated with those cords. So if I'm cleansing cords of emotional trauma, like we were just doing, right? Then I also want to command my higher self to release any residual energies associated with emotional trauma along with it. So at this time, you can command your higher self or any other mental, visual method you want to use. But the intentions is I release all residual emotional trauma, Ashe. I release all residual energies of emotional trauma, Ashe. So you can speak it, or you can see it in the body, in your mind, and you can just kind of pull it out, or you can blow it out, like whatever comes to you, whatever method comes to you to get rid of it. You just want to make sure it's out of the body. Okay. So let's just take a minute or 30 seconds or so, and let's make sure we release the residual energies associated with the emotional trauma cores that we just pulled out. Okay, so the reason why I keep turning my camera off doing this is because I'm actually doing this with you all, right? So as I release the residual energies associated with the emotional trauma, what I noticed was, one, I had this strong urge to lean back and open my mouth, and I had this really big yawn where I just like I just blew out the rest of the energy that was left. And then I noticed I started to burp as well because it cleared my stomach. And then I had my eyes closed and I started to see the light get brighter over my eyelids, like above me. So there are some symptoms, there's things you can feel when you're pulling the cords. And then of course, when you're releasing that residual energy, it can also create more space for you to be able to, make room for something new. All right, y'all. Now let's go into soul ties, okay? Let's go into soul ties. So soul ties are emotional bonds that form an attachment. They may be godly or ungodly, pure or demonic. Most people use the term soul tie to refer to connections linking people. Soul ties are not necessarily sexual or romantic. It is not uncommon for individuals to form attachments. So when we're talking about soul ties, right, we're saying a deep connection between two people, a deep connection. So if you look at this example here, the cording between solar plexus chakras of two people, I was talking about earlier, a lot of times the connection between us are attached to the chakras. So this connection between these two people connected to the solar plexus could be personal power related, meaning these two people feel more powerful when they are together. So they have a soul tie attached to their solar plexus to assist each other with that. And because the solar plexus deal with self-esteem, that could be also the reason that their soul tie is there. This person helps my self-esteem, I help their self-esteem. And sometimes it can be a one-way thing, you know. Now the thing about the solar plexus, because it deals with personal power, it also can deal with control, meaning that this soul tie between one person to the other person could be associated with the ability to control that other person. So let's say if this guy, his soul tie to her solar plexus is to control her. It'll be basically like him being able to take her power and use it for himself. And then because she no longer has her power because he's taken it, he can now control her, tell her what to do. And she don't have the personal power, stand up for herself. And of course, this can happen vice versa. So remember, it says that these cords can be godly or ungodly, meaning that they can be pure in pure love, or they can be in a malevolent form, an evil-minded, demonic type of form. So soul ties can be good, bad, or indifferent. But usually you can tell if they're going to be good or bad, because that's usually how they're going to be. Now, being attached, right? Having attachment between people is very common, and it's very normal to have some attachment, right? How those attachments are established and the intentions with those attachments will make the difference. So if you have someone who, when you feel like you're around them, your energy is drained, then there may be a soul tie that may be not so good for you. It's actually taken from you. It's not helping you. Might be helping them, but it's not helping you. So because it's not a mutual thing, I would want to get rid of that soul tie. That's not a soul tie I want to keep, because it's not mutual. It's not helping me. It's not helping them, or it's helping them, but it's really enabling them. So I really don't want that for them either. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and call my energy back, and I'm gonna go ahead and release that soul tie between me and that other person. Or I'm gonna ask my higher self or my divine support team, which is my spirit guides and guardian angels, to step in and remove that soul tie between me and this other person. And in some cases, you're gonna wanna remove all the soul ties between you and another person. Sometimes it can just be a sexual tie. Okay, look, I like this person. I think we work well together. I think that, this is the person I want in my life, just not on a romantic way. So I'm gonna let the other cords or soul ties stay, but I'm gonna ask my higher self and my divine support team to remove all the romantic cords between me and this person, so that we can still focus on the business and the thing that we work with without that extra tie that could, possibly throw things off. So this is like an example of when you don't have to remove all the soul ties. You might like some of them, but there might be some that you want to remove because it might not be in the best interest of you and the other person. So a soul tie, again, it's just like any other cord, except that there's usually an emotional connection to the soul tie. It's the emotional connection. So that means even when it comes to objects, I believe it could be possible to have a soul tie between us and an object because of the emotional attachment to that object. It could be something left behind from a loved one that passed away, and it's like we keep it to remember that person, right? So sometimes we get a soul tie established to the object that we forget to have our attachment to the person that we actually lost. So sometimes it's good to release our soul ties from the object so we can focus on the person. That's just something to keep in mind, okay? All right, so the same way you will pull a cord like we did with the chakras, right? You could do the soul ties the same exact way, same method. This is just showing the difference between the two. So when you feel soul ties are going to be felt a little bit more stronger than you would with just a normal ethereal cord. It's going to feel stronger in the body. It's going to feel deeper. Like you're just going to feel it stronger, okay? All right. Soul ties, again, very similar to ethereal cords. So a stronger bond than ethereal cords, can be more painful when pulled and detached, may be established from past life. So you can't have soul ties from past life, passed on into this life. Now, when we talk about being more painful, because the cords are usually stronger, they're usually thicker, more dense energy, when you start to remove them, whether you do them through the mental method or if you do it by the higher self or calling a divine support team, they may hurt a little bit in the physical body as they come out, right? It might hurt a little bit more. And also they can be a little bit more emotional because they are emotional. Sometimes it can trigger a release, which can be through crying, or sobbing, or it could be sometimes even a physical release. You might have to go to the bathroom a few times because that cord was so thick and dense that it took up more space than a normal cord. So then when you pulled it out, it actually triggered your digestive system or your urinary system to actually now be able to release because that energy is no longer blocking the intestines or the urinary system. Okay, so this is too why sometimes you may fart when pulling soul ties and cords, and same thing with burping. Okay. Soul ties. Now, this is talking about being careful who you allow to plug in, right? We're talking about an emotional connection. When there's an emotional connection, that connection is going to be much more stronger. And stronger doesn't always mean good. So you could be soul tying with someone who may be an emotional vampire. So an emotional vampire will be someone who's manipulative and someone who may have narcissistic tendencies. Now, we're not here to diagnose someone as a narcissist. So we're talking about narcissistic tendencies. Like maybe they are, but definitely those who have the tendency to be narcissistic. So some soul ties at some point may no longer serve you. It means that that soul tie was good for the moment, for the time frame, but now it's been 10 years and you've grown, they've grown. Now it's time for those soul ties to be released. And then you have soul ties that can be created, okay? Most of the time I would say that soul ties are created unintentionally. Let's say you and another person have a deep conversation, a very intimate moment. I would say these are people who are, I won't say the term is sapiosexual, people who are attracted to intellect, right? So you say you meet somebody and that mind stimulation is really deep and it's intimate and it's sexy, right? A soul tie may be created because of that interaction. And it's a deep connection. Doesn't have to mean romantic, but it's just a deep connection. Like, man, I love when I talk to this person because we always are able to have an understanding of something we both needed, from that conversation. That could be a deep soul tie connection that was created. And then, of course, there's those that are malicious that are created like through love spells, where someone tries to use magic or some sort of ritual to create a soul tie so they can keep you, attached to them emotionally. You have those kind too. Or coming from those with the narcissistic tendencies that may play on your emotions to have you feel guilty or to gaslight you. Those can create soul ties that are not so good, but they're there. And then, of course, there are many soul ties that are created through sexual intercourse, which kind of deals a little bit more with the whole plug-in, if you get what I'm saying. You got to be careful who you allow to plug into you. And you have to be careful, if you're male, who you plug into. Because once you plug into that sacred energy, which is also where the life force energy and the Kundalini energy is stored, then you are connecting to a much, much deeper part of that individual. And so are they to you. So you want to make sure that, if you're going to plug in with somebody, make sure that energy between you and the other person is right, on the same frequencies, at least around the same frequencies, so that it's a not just an enjoyable act, but it actually can be used for manifestation and creativity as well. And it doesn't leave neither person drained. So yeah. All right. So this will conclude like the classroom portion of it. Is there any questions or any experiences anyone would like to share? The floor is open. Just come off your mic. You don't have to say your name. Just come off your mic and ask your question or your comment or share anything with us.
Like I said, I don't have to say my name since I'm the only man besides yourself in the group. But this was an incredible class. It answered a lot of questions for me and things I'm dealing with personally. So, oh, okay. So, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, yeah, just incredible class, and like I said, it helped me a lot as far as a lot of things that I'm dealing with personally. Some decisions I got to make that are extremely difficult as far as moving forward with my personal life. So I thank you. I thank you.
You are welcome. And you know what? Now that you brought that up about making decisions, sometimes pulling the cords can help you make a decision. Because let's say if there's an emotional attachment to the situation that you're speaking of, right? This is the deep, connection. And you're like, man, this is gonna be hard to make because maybe there's some feelings like you like the person or you like the space or you like the situation, but it might be a person or a situation that you got to let go and you're just not sure which way to go. So sometimes by pulling those cords and those soul ties between you and that other individual, it can allow you to be able to think logically with your divine masculine if it's best for you versus, a wounded feminine will be like holding on to it, knowing that it's not serving you good. So sometimes pulling a cord gives you, some space to actually, think about it, over a few days or a few weeks and to have a clearer mind in approaching it. So, I recommend pull the cords, see how you feel after you pull the cords. If you feel drawn back to it, then maybe it's something that's not time to be released yet. If you pull the cords and you no longer have a resignation with it, then that means it's done with. That's your confirmation. Because if it's for you, it's going to come back, right? Those cords are going to come right back if it's divine purpose. So just keep that in mind when you are trying to make this decision.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, anybody else? You're free to share, comment. And thank you for the compliments about the class. I appreciate that. Anybody else? Good? Everybody good? Okay. Okay, so this will end the classroom portion and we're going to some loose talk. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and make sure I get this out to the rest of y'all.